General Counsel of the district. I'm outside legal counsel for the district, and she asked me to preside over the initial part of today's meeting of the El Paso Independent School District Citizen Advisory Redistricting Committee. And we are streaming online at this time, and we wish to thank all the visitors that are here tonight, as well as everyone that is watching this evening's online streaming of this initial committee meeting for the EPISD Redistricting Committee. And let us start by introducing the various members of the Redistricting Committee that have been tasked by the Board of Trustees with developing redistricting plans for the consideration of the Board of Trustees at a future date. I believe that, is Mr. Apodaca here? Could you stand, please, Mr. Apodaca, and be recognized? This is Michael Apodaca. Thank you, Mr. Apodaca. He is an appointee of Trustee Hanani, single-member District 1. And Ms. Hurt, Tony Hurt. Ms. Hurt, could you stand and be recognized? Ms. Hurt is a member of the committee appointed by Mr. Al Velarde, Board President. And Mr. Carlos Martinez. Carlos, could you please stand? Thank you. Mr. Martinez, member of the committee appointed by Trustee Josh Acevedo, single-member District 3. Mr. Lopez, Michael Lopez, if you could please stand, sir. Thank you. Mr. Lopez, a member of the committee appointed by Trustee Isabel Hernandez, single-member District 4. I believe that Mr. Thaxton is Mr. Thaxton here? Okay, he's not here yet. We're hoping that he arrives. We've tried to reach him, we're unable to do so. And that brings us to Mr. Scott Brown. Mr. Brown, thank you. Mr. Brown, member of the committee appointed by Trustee Kael Abalos, single-member District 6. And last but certainly not least, Georgina Williams. Ms. Williams, thank you. Ms. Williams, a member of the committee appointed by Daniel Call, single-member District number 7. Okay, I somehow got way ahead here. The next order of business in this meeting of the committee, which we are meeting pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. The meeting has been opened. And so at this point, we would, I don't know if anyone has signed up to speak in a public comment before the rest of the agenda is reached, but is there a member of the public here, not a member of the committee, that would wish to provide any comments at this time on the El Paso School District redistricting process or any other matter for the consideration of the committee? Is there anyone? Okay, seeing that no one has raised their hand or otherwise indicated a desire to speak, we'll move on to the next item, which is a presentation on redistricting requirements. This will basically be some of the legal requirements that we have in law regarding redistricting. And they are basically set out in Chapter 11 of the Texas Education Code. And the first applicable subsection that's on the screen now is Section 11.052I, which provides that a school district must redivide its single-member districts not later than 90 days before the date of the first regular school board election, after which the census data can be considered. And so in this case, we're operating based on the 2020 census. The census data was not finalized in time for it to be used in connection with the 2021 Board of Trustees election. So the next Board of Trustees election is in May of 2023. That will be the first Board of Trustees election where the 2020 finalized census data can be considered. And the 90 days is cutting it very close. The goal is to have a final redistricting plan approved by the Board of Trustees by early this fall, hopefully by September. And so the redistricting is required if, based on the latest census data, the population of the most populous single-member district exceeds the population of the least populous single-member district by more than 10%. And that 10% deviation is what triggers the requirement to redraw the single-member district boundaries. And the reason this committee has been appointed is because the census data reflects that the most populous single-member district exceeds the population of the least populous by at least 10%. You have here on the next slide, you have a map of the El Paso Independent School District boundaries with the boundaries of each single member district color-coded. And starting over here in what would be considered the southeast corner of the district, you have sort of in a salmon color the boundaries of single member District 1. Then moving to the east, in the far southeastern portion of the district, the current boundaries of single member District 2. To the north of that, you have the very large boundaries of single member District 3, which include a lot of uninhabited land that is included within the Fort Bliss Military Reservation, and also includes in the far western portion of single member District 3, uninhabited land, part of Mount Franklin. And you may wonder, well, why would uninhabited land even be included? Well, by law, the entire district has to be in some single member district, whether that area is inhabited or not. To the north of single member District 3, you have in blue single member District number 4. And to the north of single member District 4, in kind of a pink color, you have single member District number 5, in the far northeastern portion of the district, and it runs north all the way to the state line between Texas and New Mexico. Then coming back around in a counterclockwise manner, in the far northwest portion of the district, in sort of a darker blue, you have the boundaries, an area encompassed by single member District 6. And then to the south of that in green, you have single member District number 7, which then brings us back to single member District number 1. So that displays the current district boundaries for each of the 7 single member districts. Now let's look at the census data that triggers the requirement to redistrict. And I've gone to the next slide. On the far left-hand side, you see the 7 single-member districts listed. The next column shows the population of each of the single-member districts based on the 2010 census before redistricting. And so the boundaries those reflect boundaries that are no longer in effect because those numbers required a redistricting. As you can see, District 1 had 39,000 plus, whereas Districts 5 and 6 each had over 52,000 population. And so that triggered the requirement to redistrict, to redraw the lines, which then resulted in the current single-member district boundary lines. The population in the next column, captioned Population 2020 Census, shows the population in each of the current single-member districts based on the 2020 finalized census data. Now, if you'll go to the bottom of each column, one interesting fact here is that the overall population of the El Paso School District has declined by about 11,500 people, comparing the 330,000 plus based on the 2010 census to the 319,000 plus based on the 2020 census. When you look at the single-member district populations, you'll notice that they range from the smallest population is in single-member District 4 that has 40,500 plus. The largest is right next door in single district number 5 that has over 51,000 population, and clearly that's more than a 10% deviation. And so that triggers the requirement to redistrict. I've been involved in the redistrictings of the El Paso School District single-member districts after the 1990 census, after the 2000 census, after the 2010 census, and now after the 2020 census. And every time the single-member district boundaries are drawn so that the population of each is within 10% of the population of every other one. And after every census, they get out of whack enough so that a redistricting is required. And that's true again based on the 2020 census. So in the next slide, we focus on just the 2020 census data. And as you can see, the trustee district number 5 with 51,000 plus exceeds the population of trustee district number 4 with 40,000 plus by 26%. And that it's 26% greater, the population in District 5 as compared to District 4. So that obviously triggers the requirement that alone triggers the requirement to redraw the single-member district boundary lines. This next slide, the committee will find very helpful in doing its work, because here we have the school district boundaries. The only single-member district boundaries that are highlighted are 4 and 5. But what this slide also shows is the population of each precinct within the school district. And one of the criterion that you'll want to try to observe when you're redrawing the district boundary lines is to try to keep precincts intact. You're going to try to avoid dividing precincts to the extent you can, because it does create a little extra work and can create confusion when people in the same precinct are in different single-member districts and have to vote in different trustee elections. So that's one thing to try to keep in mind, one factor. Now, the actual legal requirements, we're going back now to the education code in this slide, and it states that and the key language here is what's highlighted, and that is that the trustee districts must be compact and contiguous and must be nearly as practicable of equal population. Okay, so in a district that's shaped like the El Paso district, it's not the easiest thing in the world for every district to be compact, because the district itself is not You know, it's not a square, it's not a rectangle, it's not a circle. It's sort of an unusual shape. I've heard it described as a Y-type shape. In any event, but what you'll notice is the current districts are all contiguous. In other words, every single member district is in one piece, if you will. There was a time, I think back in the 90s, when District 5 actually jumped over the mountain and included part of the northwest portion of the district. And I don't believe that County Commissioners Precinct 4 is still that way. Maybe it is, where it jumps the mountain and part of it's in northeast, part of it's in northwest, but it's contiguous because it's a solid line that goes over the mountain. But in any event, what you want to keep in mind is you don't want districts that look gerrymandered. They don't look, I mean, they're not long and real thin or anything like that. You want them compact and all in one piece. And that's what is stated by compact and contiguous. And then as nearly as practicable of equal population, practicable allows you to take into factors such as maybe not splitting precincts, such as maybe observing natural boundary lines, such as Mount Franklin, such as trying to keep neighborhoods together, and so forth. It allows you to consider those types of factors because it does not say they have to be equal. It also allows you to consider the factor of trying not to split precincts. The additional requirements is the board will need to take action in a properly posted meeting under the Open Meetings Act to take final approval. The county elections administrator, of course, will need to be notified for purposes of preparing for the May 2023 election. And another factor to take in mind is Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 does, of course, does prohibit discrimination regarding any voting practice or procedure. So you will want to consider not only the total population, you'll want to consider the ethnic and racial breakdown of each single-member district in the lines that you're drawing to ensure that no identifiable group is somehow being isolated or discriminated against, or their voting rights are somehow being diluted or minimized. Up until a few years ago, and every redistricting I've been involved in through the 2010, we had to submit the plans to the United States Department of Justice Civil Rights Division Voting Rights section in order to get what was called pre-clearance, where they could review the proceedings, review the final product, and satisfy themselves that there was no discrimination at work. That is no longer a requirement. So that's a former requirement. It's no longer required. The board policy BBB local sets out, some of these requirements, such as that all trustees serve 4-year terms. They're staggered. Scheduled for election in 2023 are single-member districts 2, 6, and 7, and then scheduled for the first election in 2025 are single-member districts 1, 3, 4, and 5, and at least currently, election is required by majority vote, which can require a runoff election. After a redistricting, and here you see the requirements in terms of getting this done, and obviously you don't want to, the board does not want to wait to the end. Now, the default position after redistricting is that all 7 trustees would have to stand for election in the first election after the redistricting. However, this section of the Education Code that's on the screen now provides the option for all 7, for only the 3 that would normally be up for election to be up for election in 2023, and the others not to be up for election until 2025. The board will make that decision after they review the work of the committee and decide on a redistricting plan. Then based on that, the board will determine whether to exercise that option. And if the option's exercised, then of course we would stay with the current schedule of May 2023 for those 3 districts, and May 2025 for districts 1, 3, 4, and 5. Now, the Board of Trustees, and here's kind of the general process. This is the general process to be followed. We've discussed the timetable. The board has appointed its committee. This is the first public committee meeting. There are 6 more scheduled to be conducted. And let me just go ahead and take this opportunity to announce those. Tomorrow, June 15, at Brown Middle School, actually next door, I believe, at LBJ Elementary School. Then Thursday, June 16, I'm sorry, my mistake. Tomorrow, June 15, Brown Middle School, excuse me. Thursday, June 16, Moorhead Middle or Lyndon Johnson Elementary, which is next door to Moorhead Middle School. Wednesday, June 22, McGoffin Middle School. Monday, June 27, Henderson Middle School. Tuesday, June 28, Clendenin Elementary School. Wednesday, June 29, Charles Middle School. The board desired that the committee conduct a public meeting in each of the 7 single-member districts to make sure that every area of the district was covered and that citizens had a fairly convenient place and time and location where they could attend the meeting. All these meetings are scheduled to commence at 5:30. The committee will work with staff in developing possible redistricting plans. They'll be at community meetings to present the plans and receive input. And finally, the board will consider the results of the committee's work and adopt an actual plan. The more detailed step-by-step discussion of the process approved by the board include that the web page, in addition to what we've already discussed, a web page is up on the district's website, and it's captioned "About the Board, Census and Redistricting 2022," and that will be updated as the process continues, and will include, a significant amount of valuable information regarding redistricting as the committee and the process move forward. The plan is to try to broadcast each committee meeting. There'll be a progress report to the board. There'll be, hopefully by July, the committee will have a recommendation or recommendations to make. That will be subject to a survey. In August, a meeting to discuss the survey results, an update to the board on August 16, and a target date for board final approval and adoption September 20. And these are some specific criteria set by the board that they would like the committee and expect the committee to consider. Some of these we've already discussed because they're legal requirements, that the single-member districts need to be compact and contiguous. The populations of each need to be, as nearly as practicable, equal. they'd like to see that the new single-member districts bear some resemblance to the existing single-member districts so as to avoid too much disruption. In other words, your starting point would be the existing single-member districts, and then you would make the changes only as necessary to meet the other criteria. The next one we've discussed, trying to use entire voting precincts, avoiding splitting precincts where feasible, and geographic boundaries, which we've discussed. You want to try to avoid putting two incumbents in the same district in order to avoid disruption to the current pattern and incumbent constituency relations. That's not always possible, but it's certainly a goal to be aspired to. Maintaining existing communities of interest and neighborhoods, of course, avoiding any plans that might prejudice minority voting groups. And one thing to bear in mind is that single-member trustee districts are totally different and totally independent from school attendance zones. The two are completely separate items, and the board may be looking at school attendance zones, but that is not the job of the redistricting committee. You've got your hands full with single-member district redistricting. And so here we have, again, the restatement of the education code requirements. On this slide, we've already established that the 10% threshold's been met, requiring redistricting, and so at that point it triggers the legal requirements of trying to get the single-member districts that are compact and contiguous and as equal as feasible in population. Here we have another view on this slide of the 7 single-member districts. It shows in the shaded column the total population currently of each single-member district based on the 2020 census data. Then the next column, it's the same number in each, 45,589. That is the average size of each single-member district. That's taking the population of 319,124 and dividing it by 7. And so that is the goal toward which you will be striving to get each single-member district reasonably close to that average district size, and hopefully within, no more than 5 percentage points up or down from that. The next column, population difference, shows you the deviation on the current populations from the average. And as you can see, as we previously discussed, District 4 has the smallest population, and it's the one that's furthest away from the average. It's just over 5,000 below the average. District 5, as we've discussed, has the highest population, and it's just over 5,600 above the average. So obviously, it's self-evident that population needs to be added to current District 4, and population needs to be subtracted from current District 5. And here is just an example of something that could be done to adjust the boundaries between 4 and 5, because remember, 4 and 5 are next to each other. So that facilitates just adjusting the boundaries of those two in order to get their populations a little bit closer together. And you'll notice on this map what that involves is moving one of the precincts in District 5 that has a population of 3,554 that is next to existing District 4 and moving that to District 4 in order to get the District 4 population up and the District 5 population down. And notice that would be contiguous. For instance, if you wanted to move that precinct to District 4, that would not be contiguous. So you're looking at contiguous precincts to move. And under that example, here would be the result that you would achieve. And this is under the redistricting option slide. As you can see, by moving that one and this is by way of example only, but by moving that one precinct from District 4 to District 5, I'm sorry, from District 5 to District 4, from District 5 to District 4, the deviation in population between those two districts is reduced from currently almost 11,000 to about 3,600. Because by adding 3,500 to the lowest one and subtracting 3,500 from the most populous, the net effect is the net effect is a 7,000. You reduce the difference by 7,000 because it's 2 times 3,500. And as you can see, that move in and of itself helps to bring 4 and 5 both closer to the average. But if you look at the far right-hand column, you'll see now that if you add population to 4, that makes number 2 the least populous. And if you take population away from District 5, you have now the most populous will be actually District 5 will still by a little bit still be the most populous, closely followed by District 6. So you still have a deviation now between the most populous and least populous, even if you do that, of a 14%. So even if you made that change, the work is not completed. More work needs to be done. And so because you have the District 2 is now the lowest in population, and I misstated earlier. I said that District 5 was still the most populous. My mistake. If you'll look back on this slide, if you move that one precinct, now the least populous is 2 with 41,738, and the most populous is now 3 with 47,670. Well, now we have 2 more districts that are next to each other, the highest and the lowest. And so, again, looking at the requirements, I'm sorry, I'm going the wrong direction here. And so here, as an example, this involves moving a contiguous precinct from District 3 to District 2. And that black arrow depicts that possible move that you could consider doing. And you'll notice that that precinct has a population of 2,192. And so what is the effect of that? And here we have that on this slide. If you add the 2,100 to District 2 and subtract the 2,100 from District 3, you now have a most populous district with 47,654, a least populous district with 43,930, and guess what? Your most popular, in the far right-hand corner, your most populous district now exceeds the least populous district by only 8%. So you are now, just with those two moves, you now have every single member district, you have the most populous district exceeding the population of the least populous district by less than 10%. Now, can you get them closer? Probably, but there are some that would say this may be close enough. And that will be for you to judge as you work with staff. I would encourage you to try to get them closer than this, if you can, factoring in all the other factors. But this is just an example using raw numbers of how, with minimal changes, fairly minimal changes, you can keep 7 single-member districts that are compact and contiguous, and with the most populous exceeding the least populous by less than 10%. Okay. I believe the next order of business on our agenda, before I turn it over to Victor Maldonado for some more looking at and working with the numbers and the maps, is the election of a chair for the committee. The committee should have a chair, and that will chair your future meetings. And I don't know how much time the committee members have had to think about that or anything else, but at this point, is there anyone that would like to nominate a member of the committee? Is there a member? Okay, I think we have a motion and a second and a third for Michael Apodaca. Mr. Apodaca, are you willing to serve? Okay. Are there any other nominations? Do I hear a motion to close nominations? Moved and seconded to close nominations. Do I hear a motion to elect Mr. Apodaca as committee chair by acclamation? Okay, so moved. So all in favor of electing, is there a second for that one? Yes. Okay, I have a second. All in favor of electing Mr. Apodaca as chair of the committee, please either raise your hand or say aye. Aye. Let the record reflect that the vote appears to be unanimous. I don't know whether you abstained, Mr. Apodaca. You can, okay, fine. Then the vote is unanimous by vote of the 6 members of the committee that are here present. Congratulations, Mr. Apodaca. And with your permission, Mr. Apodaca, and the committee's permission, I would like to now retreat and hand the meeting over to Mr. Victor Maldonado, who's with the school district and has worked closely with Mr. Steve Clay, another district administrator who can't be here tonight, who in working up these numbers and working up these figures and maps, and who will work closely with the committee going forward. And before I do that, are there any questions about anything about my presentation that I could answer at this point? Okay. From the public, any questions? Okay. Seeing none, I'll hand it over to Mr. Maldonado. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Victor Maldonado. I am a senior data analyst with the Strategy Analytics Assessment and PEAMS department. With this particular project, I've been asked to come up with some options, which we'll see here in a second, as well as work with the committee to come up with other recommendations that we may evaluate to see if they meet the criteria that Mr. Safi just mentioned to us. All right. The board had suggested or recommended that staff come up with a few options to present to the committee, in addition to the recommendations that you all present as well. I believe we have 4 options, and we'll start with the first option. Just to kind of recap what Mr. Safi had mentioned, the goal of the redistricting is to bring in the least populous and the most populous to within 10% of each other. So we'll see here as we go through the process, what we do is we first start out by mapping out current districts and then coming up with what their total population currently is, which we saw earlier. We did see that they are currently, the difference between the most and the least does currently exceed 10%. So we went ahead and started making some moves. The process goes, we begin by taking a particular district that is contiguous, and we make a move, and then we evaluate what that effect is on the populations. If after a move, the population still exceeds that 10% difference, then we'll have to make additional moves. So in option 1, we see here that we are looking at precinct 0055, which currently resides in District 5, and we move it to District 4. That move in it by itself was not enough to bring in the difference from the least to the most populous districts. So an additional move was required. In this case, we saw that the difference between District 3 and District 2 exceeded the 10%. So we went ahead and selected precinct 0075, and we moved that from District 3 into District 2, as indicated by the arrows. Here is what the the new map of option 1 would look like. And here we have our table evaluating the process and the final result. We see here in the 3rd column, we have, rather the 4th column, update to district precinct 55. We see that we are subtracting 3,993 from District 5 and adding that to District 4. The second move that you saw was taking precinct 75, removing 2,192 from precinct 75 and adding that to District 2. From there, we go ahead and reevaluate the populations. We see that the new population of District 2 is 43,930. The new population of District 3 is 45,478. The new population of District 4 is 44,521. The new population of District 5 is 47,215. From there, we take the new least populous district and compare it to the most populous district. And we come up with a range, which you'll see in the far right column. If any of those ranges exceeds the 10%, we need to continue the process. But we notice here, we see here, that the greatest range is between District 2 and District 6, with a difference of 8%. So that brings us within that 10% threshold. So option 1 would get us to that target. And again, these are just recommendations from staff. Of course, we're happy to work with you to evaluate the recommendations that the committee determines. Looking at option 2. Option 2 is similar to option 1. The only difference you'll see is that now we are working on precinct 8. Precinct 8 is actually a split precinct between District 6 and District 7. As Mr. Safi had mentioned earlier, we want to avoid splitting precincts. And as a matter of fact, this is the only split precinct we have in the district. So option 2 is just option 1 and then cleaning up that split precinct. We see here that we're taking the northern portion of precinct 8, which is within District 6, and assigning it to District 7. Here is what the districts would look like with the changes. And here we evaluate the changes in our table. Again, same as option 1, but here we see that we have in the column update to precinct 8, we see 713 being taken from District 6 and added to District 7. When we evaluate that change, we have a new total for District 6 of 46,809 and a new total for District 7 of 44,937. From there, we evaluate the range from the most populous to the least populous, and we see here that the greatest range is 7%. 7% is between District 5 as the most populous and District 2 as the least populous. So again, option 2 will hit our target of staying within that 10% range. Just a quick note, option 1 is the option that we've come up with the least amount of moves that achieves our goal of getting within the 10%. Just 2 moves. All the other options that we are presenting today do require additional moves. Okay, looking at option 3. In option 3, we have several moves. Again, you'll notice on the right-hand side, we're working with precinct 55, moving it from District 5 to District 4. If we go to the southern portion of our boundary, we're looking at precinct 75 and precinct 73. Those precincts would go from District 3 into District 2. Moving westward a little bit, we're looking at precinct 41. Precinct 41 will be moving from District 1 into District 3. Okay, we go to the northwestern portion of the boundary, and we're looking at the changes between 6 and 7. We're taking precinct 176, and as well as that portion of 8, and we're moving both of those from 6 into 7. Here is what the updated district map would reflect after the changes. And we evaluate our table. Again, this was a process. We started with one change. If the change did not reach the goal, we went ahead and started making other changes. We see here that we needed 6 changes to reach our goal. When we evaluate the difference between the most populous and the least populous, we see here that we are within a range of 6%. 6%. So this particular option gets us a little bit closer between the maximum and the minimum. And the final option that we have available to you, again, we see here working with Precinct 55 and Precinct 56 right next to it, Contiguous. Both of those precincts would be moved from District 5 into District 4. From District 4, we would take Precinct 66 and move that into District 3. We would take Precinct 74 and move that from District 3 into District 2. And then again, we would go ahead and clean up that split precinct between 6 and 7. Here is our updated map with the changes and our table. And so with these changes, if we look at the range from the minimum to the maximum, we see that we are at 9% from the minimum to the maximum, which is it's borderline, but it does get us within that 10% range. Okay. Again, these are just options that we have made available to you. Again, we are more than happy to work with you to see what options you all would like to propose, and we'll be happy to evaluate them and see if the options you propose will hit the target of within 10%. At this time, do we have any questions related to the maps? Yes.
I have a question on, if you could just go back to any of that, I'll just
Okay.
reference it. Okay, so in District 5, I just want to make sure I know what I'm looking at. I know that there's going to be an influx of about 9,500 single-family unit homes. Is that north of District 5? I know it's between Sean Haggerty and McCombs. So can you kind of point that out? I think it's in District 5, but I just want to make sure.
Correct. It would reside within District 5, and it's actually going to be a little bit just outside of the view of the map. But those,
But it's within EPISD boundaries?
correct. That is correct.
Okay, so we're looking at an influx of 9,500 there.
Correct.
Is there a way that maybe, and this is just for me personally, that you can show us maybe for another meeting or in an email where the school closure impacts are and the reduction in the schools that we're seeing
Okay.
across all the districts?
Okay.
Because if we're redistricting, we want to look at all those changes for the next 10 years and where the growth is coming in and where it's not.
Absolutely. Yes, of course. Any other questions? Yes.
So you all have it's kind of awkward with the echo in here, but do you all have a tool or going to provide the committee a tool where that we could play around with moving certain precincts around? Because I noticed the county did that, the city did that, but I don't know if the district is going to provide something like that for us.
Yes, and I believe it is the same tool. Well, we are utilizing Dave's Maps.
Okay.
And that allows us to very quickly and very easily switch precincts between districts and then evaluate what the result is. Yes, what we can do is we'll develop a template for you with the current boundaries, the way they currently are, and that will allow you to explore options on your own to see what may or may not work. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay, and so the next steps, from this point, we will continue the rest of our meetings throughout the week. But again, we will provide that information related to campus closures and as well as providing links emailed to you with direct access to the Dave's Maps web tool.
The closures and consolidations, like the ones that are actually coming back together as well. So not just the closures. So I know that there's like, consolidations and joining of schools and new schools. I just want to kind of see that.
Yes, ma'am.
So my other question was, it's on now. It is? Okay, perfect. So just an understanding about the schedule that we have with these meetings. So are these going to be the only working meetings that we have as a committee, which are going to be these public meetings? Or the meeting like we have tomorrow, are we going to have that information like Judina's asking? Are we going to have that ready for tomorrow? Or are we going to have some additional working meetings that are not public meetings like these are?
I can't answer that question. Do we have additional meetings? These will be the meetings.
So this is it. So we have to come up with something in these next 7 meetings.
I'm saying yes based on.
If we need extra time then, or to discuss more, is there an ability for us to have additional meetings? Because what I feel like this process is going to be very rushed, that we basically have 3 meetings this week, we have 3 meetings in 2 weeks, and then we have 1 extra meeting after that.
Okay, so I will ask Ms. Collins the question, and then Mr. Maldonado, right, I'll get your contact information, and we'll get you an answer for that.
Okay, yeah, because mainly I just don't want, with redistricting, we have to think about what, how we're going to have impacts with our schools, impacts as like how Ms. Williams mentioned about, school closures. Also, and just for historic reference, the reason why Precinct 8 was cut like that was because I believe when I was on the committee 10 years ago, I think either the member from 6 or 7 wanted that cut, so to continue, even though we don't go by attendance zone, but that was basically the attendance zone to keep that trustee member within that area. So, it's items like that where I think we probably need to have a little bit more time to discuss like those questions versus these just 7 meetings. So if we could get an answer to that, I guess for tomorrow, and actually, ironically, I will not be here tomorrow because I have a meeting I have to be at. But if there's a way we could do that, that would be great.
Okay, I'll ask Ms. Collins, and then we'll get you an answer.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Correct, correct. Yes, sir. Okay.
I just wanted to comment briefly on Ms. Williams' question about future growth in single-member District 5. You can certainly take into consideration what you think future growth is going to be. However, that doesn't remove the requirement that the current, the district's lines that you draw result in current single-member districts that are as close as practicable to each other in population. But, you know, it's still a factor that you can consider in reaching your ultimate result as long as you meet that legal requirement. Why don't we repeat the next one? Okay. Yeah.
All right. So the remainder of the schedule is as follows. Wednesday, June 15th, Brown Middle School Library. Thursday, June 16th, initially indicated as Moorhead, but my understanding is at Murphy Library. Wednesday, June 22nd, McGoffin Middle School Library. Monday, June 27th, Henderson Middle School Library. I believe has been updated to Tinajero Library. Tuesday, June 28th, Clendenin Elementary School Library. Wednesday, June 29th, Charles Middle School Library.
Thank you, Mr. Maldonado. Are there any other questions or comments? Otherwise, the committee could, if they want, continue to meet now and with discussion, in which event the meeting will remain open and won't be adjourned until the meeting, the committee's concluded. Or if the committee is ready to adjourn the meeting, then it could be adjourned. That's up to the committee at this point. Yes. Let me add that one reason that these meetings are posted as public meetings under the Open Meetings Act is the possibility that you could have one or more trustees attend one of these meetings. That triggers the requirement to post it under the Open Meetings Act. It's my understanding from CESI that the presentation that we have made will be made at all 7 of the initial meetings. If you have additional working meetings, then this presentation, you could go straight to work if you have additional work meetings. And of course, you can meet and work after, whenever this presentation is concluded, any of the next 6 meetings and tonight. So I don't know, Mr. Apodaca, if you all want to continue to meet, you can. Otherwise, you can adjourn at this time.
We don't have the tools for Dave's redistricting yet, so we haven't seen what we could draw, what we could change. So, do you have a timeline that we will receive that by tomorrow, so that when we meet here today?
Email it, if I have an email address, email it to you. There will be some instructions because you will have to create an account, which
Right.
is very straightforward. And then once you have a link, you'll be able to modify it as
Okay.
you work with your options.
Yes. Okay. No, thank you. And so. Okay. 7 times. So, awesome. So then, I don't know if we maybe want, each one is at 5:30? Okay. Because I think it would be kind of silly of us to hear it 7 times. Yeah, somewhere else, so. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that we just need to work on is, I mean, for us to get, you know, the information so we could play around with the maps. And I guess tomorrow, if we do receive that within a timely manner, maybe we could just, we could maybe have like just a individual work session where you just play around with it so you can see what Dave's redistricting, does, because it is actually a very simple program, since I played with it for when I created some city council maps and some county maps in the last redistricting cycles. And we could, and I guess maybe we could have a list of questions tomorrow and maybe answering your questions as well.
My question was, how close are the city, county, and school district maps aligned as far as precincts? They're pretty close, right?
They are kind of close. So like, for example, currently right now, if we look at, most of them kind of, with the exception of District 6 and 7, because the city council maps completely changed up there on how they are. Those kind of don't match, but like District 1, 3, 4, and 5, and 2 kind of fit a very similar model of the new city council maps, actually. And so, those are, with the exception of what I looked at earlier, because I was looking at the city council maps just to think of like what are some maybe similarities that we could look at with their maps. There are some similarities here and there. And that's something that we maybe all can look at, like see what other city council maps are there, or what maps the city has drawn, and also, the county unfortunately doesn't really help because there's only 4 districts, there's only 4 commissioners, so that doesn't help.
Be able to see the actual streets and divisions, because it seems like you think, well, I think I know where this all is, but if we were to be able to see more of a map, is that possible?
So, and actually, once we get the shape map from Dave's redistricting, you're going to be able to zoom in into like where, like specific, like what street these are. Also, you could break it up by census blocks, which again, the goal is definitely not to split any precincts unless we just want to be hilarious and spend a district tons of money on elections. But we definitely don't want to do that. So Dave's redistricting lets you go all the way down to even the census block as well, and so that's something that's really neat. Say it again.
Will the district provide laptops so we can do it here as a group? Sorry. Will the district provide a laptop so we can access this Dave's maps while we're here together as a group, or do you want us to do that at home? Ceci, where are you?
Well, also, one of the things, kind of like in that, like I know that some of the, that was not me, I hope. Yikes. Okay. One of the things I did, notice right now that I think if all the schools do, all the campuses do have some type of public Wi-Fi, correct? So I don't know if there's some like additional access points that we need to get, because I know I was trying to get on it right now and it just kept saying no internet. And so that might be a small hindrance if we're trying to play with this. Yeah, because that's what I was trying to get on. Actually, I was trying to get on Dave's Redistricting and make my own map right now, but I couldn't do it because it kept saying no Wi-Fi. So, okay. Other than that, any questions from the other members?
I just have one option I wouldn't mind seeing tomorrow. One. Well, I already redid it. I just want to see what it looks like. So option 3 looks great. If you get rid of that and so option 3 looks great if you take off 55 and add 53 instead. It makes the numbers come out, sorry, I'm sort of a math genius. I do a lot of work in my head, and it gets us all within about 3 to 4% across the way with option 3 with that minor change.
Yeah, no, it does. I think one thing maybe we should explore also is looking like at certain, communities that do have some common interests with each other. So like, for example, I know like one of the things, one of the big questions has always been, should we follow like having districts that are under I-10 together as one district? Because some of those people in south of I-10, especially in the Samizdat area, and those areas, they always feel underrepresented. And so that's something that maybe we should explore to see if there's actually ability to do that. And like, for example, in city council, or the city council district map, when they redid District 8, that was one of the big contention points, because that district was always drawn in a very salamandery bad way, with having one side of the district all the way down to another side district that has no common, there's no common values between that part of the district. So I think even though that is I do agree with you. The third option is the easiest one. We could if we go with this one, we call it a night, we're done. But I think there's also should be maybe some conversation about exploring how we could have certain communities that maybe feel represented, and see if that we could actually put that and fix that. Yeah. So, and if option 3 works out, then it works out.
Nothing here affects where people go to school, right?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, because all we do is redistricting. They just affect of who they're going to elect as their representative. So, even though I would love to fix that everybody goes to Austin High School, but that's just me. That's my own bias. So, but anywho. Any other questions from the committee? Any questions from the public? No, sir. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Sure.
I did receive some additional information that will be of interest to the committee just now. And first of all, the Board of Trustees specifically requested that all the committee's meetings be open to the public. That's number one. But you shouldn't hesitate to work and whatever during a committee and get your work done, because that's how you're going to get your work done. The second thing is that whether or not you have laptops in front of you so that you can manipulate yourself or see yourself, there will be an interactive process whereby you can say, well, what if we move this precinct from here to here? And there'll be an interactive process whereby either Mr. Maldonado or Mr. Clay can do that. yeah, and be able to show you, okay, in real time, okay, well, okay, let's move it. And you'll flip it using the Dave's maps, is that correct?
That is correct. If perhaps we don't have laptops available, I can certainly bring up the screen and you can basically guide me on how the changes you want to make, and then we can immediately see what the result is and if it is sufficient to meet the criteria. And if we have multiple options, we save that as one, and then we move to our next option built as a committee.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the? Oh, sorry. Are there any other questions from the committee or the public? So, with no further questions, is there a motion to? Do we want to adjourn, or do we want? Oh yeah, I guess we would. I was going to say to recess to tomorrow, since we have, back-to-back meetings. We adjourn. Okay, sounds good. Okay, so is there a motion to adjourn? There's a motion. Is there a second? Hearing no, any opposition, hearing none, then the meeting is closed for today.